Президент Российской Федерации
Vladimir
Putin и президент Республики
Equatorial Guinea, Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo.
Выступление президента
The speech
Российской
by the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin.
Уважаемые дамы и господа,
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen,
я очень рад всех вас
dear
приветствовать
friends, Mr. Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo,
седьмом форуме «Российская
I am glad to welcome you
энергетическая неделя».
at the
Это
7th
мероприятие
Forum
прочно
Russian
вошло
Energy
в
Week in
деловой
Moscow.
график
This event
глобальной
has
энергетики.
become a part of the
Вновь
global energy
объединила на
agenda.
своей площадке
Once again, it
руководителей
brings
ведущих
together the
отраслевых
heads of the
компаний
major
и
industries and
организаций,
organizations,
представителей органов
representatives of the
власти,
authorities,
признанных специалистов,
renowned specialists,
экспертов,
experts,
журналистов.
and journalists.
В этом году свыше 4000
This year,
участников из
over
более чем 50
4,000
стран собрались
participants
вместе,
from over
чтобы
50 countries
обсудить
have gathered
важнейшие
together
вопросы
to
энергетической
discuss
повестки.
the major
Те
issues on the
вызовы,
energy
с которыми
agenda,
сегодня сталкиваются
the challenges
и производители, и
faced by
потребители
the producers
энергоресурсов
and the consumers
всех
of energy
частях
resources in all parts of
И,
the
конечно,
world.
нынешний форум – это отличная
Today's
возможность
forum
для того,
is a
чтобы
great
завязать
opportunity
новые
to
контакты,
establish new
договориться о
contacts,
сотрудничестве
to
и
find
обменяться
agreement and
мнениями
seek
о
cooperation, to
долгосрочных
exchange views
перспективах
on long-term prospects of the
топливно-энергетического комплекса.
energy and fuel sector.
Очевидно, что современная энергетика
Obviously,
является одной
modern
из
energy
ключевых
is one of the
отраслей,
key
настоящим
industries and a true
фундаментом
foundation
мирового
for
развития.
global
Когда
development.
она работает спокойно,
When it
по
works
прозрачным и
in
понятным
a
правилам,
stable,
когда
transparent
осваиваются
and clear manner,
месторождения и
when we work
перерабатываются ресурсы,
on new
а поставки
fields
на рынок
and
ведутся
process the resources,
бесперебойно,
and when we
всё
see
это создает
unhindered
прочную
supply
основу
of
для роста
resources to the
экономики,
markets, we have a
социальной
solid
сферы,
foundation
для
for the growth of
повышения
economy, the social sphere,
благополучия
and to improve the
К
welfare
сожалению,
of our
эта
citizens.
прописная истина
Unfortunately,
всё меньше принимается в
this
расчёт
well-known
теми,
truth
кто взял на вооружение
is not taken into
механизмы
consideration by
незаконных
those who use
санкций.
the
И полагает,
mechanisms
что
of illegal
сможет
sanctions,
применить их
those
с
who suppose
выгодой
they could use
для
them for
себя
their own
и в
benefit
сфере
in the energy
О
sphere
чем
as
идет
well.
речь?
What
Исторически
am I
сложилось
talking
так,
about?
что именно в руках
Historically,
Запада
it
оказались
was the West
сосредоточены основные
that
элементы,
held
обеспечивающие
the major
инфраструктуру
elements of the support
глобального
infrastructure of the global
рынка.
energy market.
Имея в виду инновационные решения
I
по
mean
добыче сырья,
the innovative solutions in the resource extraction, logistics, insurance for the resource shipments, as well as the payment systems for these operations. In other words, that which, together with technology, forms the so-called platform of the global energy sector. The Western elites supposed that they could cut access to these services for those countries that they saw as politically undesirable. In this way, they could push them to the sidelines of progress. But essentially, they were trying to push them out of the market. I believe many might agree that these tools are used primarily as tools for unfair competition. The motives are clear. The West does not seek competition because it fails in a fair fight. That is why it resorts to discrimination under the guise of so-called Euro-Atlantic solidarity. The fight for human rights and so on. They have numerous pretexts for that. But what do we see in reality? By closing down their own platform, the West only accelerated and boosted the development of alternative solutions in logistics, insurance, international payment systems and technological solutions. Sure, this process is complicated and it takes quite a lot of effort. But the process moves on, continues to move on. Let me underline that today these solutions are independent of outside influence, and given the fact that they are based on qualitatively new technological solutions, they are becoming ever more efficient and ubiquitous.
В первую очередь в странах, которые
First
набирают
of all,
обороты,
in the countries that are
демонстрируют
currently
высокие
gaining
темпы
traction,
экономического развития.
showing high rates of economic
Уже не раз
development.
говорил, современный
I
мир
had
вошел в
stated
эпоху
previously
коренных,
that the modern world
необратимых
is going
изменений.
through deep,
Формируется
irreversible
многополярная
changes.
модель развития,
We see the
которая
establishment of a
запускает
multipolar development
новую волну
model
глобального
that starts a
роста
new
на
wave
весь
of global growth for the
21
entire
век.
21st
И этот рост
century.
будет
This growth
сосредоточен не
would
в
not be
Европе,
concentrated
и не
in
в Северной
Europe
Америке.
or in North
Конечно,
America.
фундаментальные основы европейской экономики,
Sure,
американской,
the
они очень
fundamental
серьезные, мощные.
basis
И
of the European and the
конечно,
North American
функционируют и
economy is
будут
very strong,
функционировать.
and they will continue to function in the future.
Тормозной путь будет долгим.
It will
Но
take a
все-таки
long
рост
time for them to
основной
slow down.
сосредоточится не в
However,
Европе и не в Северной
the
Америке,
major
которые
growth would not be concentrated in Europe or North America, who are slowly losing positions in the global economy. The growth would be concentrated in the BRICS, as well as those countries willing to join our group, those who see the prospects of equal cooperation, considering the national interests of each party. Let me repeat once again for this audience. This is objective data, international data. Back in 1992, the share of the G7 in the global GDP was 45%, while the BRICS share was only 22%. By the end of 2023, the share of G7 in the global GDP has reduced to 30%, while the BRICS share has increased to 36%, and the rates are rising. Let me note, according to international experts, certain BRICS countries, including China, Russia, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, the economic dynamics would be positive, but relatively moderate. Let me repeat. This is the data from experts, including international experts. However, the highest rates of economic growth would be shown in the states of the so-called Global South, which so far have a low level of GDP per capita, low levels of urbanization, and high birth rates. These are, first of all, the countries of South and Southeast Asia, as well as Africa, including, by the way, Equatorial Guinea, whose president, His Excellency Mr. Teodoro Obiang Yamambasogo, is taking part in our plenary session. Please welcome him. Thank you. Let me repeat. Russia is the chair of BRICS this year, and BRICS sees its goal in multiplying our economic capacities, in creating the space of opportunities for those interested in harmonic and mutually beneficial cooperation. Let me underline, mutually beneficial for the common and shared interests of our countries and peoples. The states who are already members or are about to become the future centers of growth will establish a new development platform free from any outside interference, including resource platform, technology, professional, financial, trade and investment platforms. We're also talking about an energy platform. As I said, energy has a defining role in the state of the economy and the social sphere. Russia, despite the objective difficulties that you're well aware of, everyone has difficulties, essentially, and we have our own. And still, Russia remains one of the major participants of the global energy market. In the last 2.5 years, the Russian companies have managed to divert their oil and oil product and coal supplies to other areas. Previously, the share of the Asia-Pacific region in our energy export was around 39%. But by the end of last year, it grew by 1.5 times, exceeding 60%. Overall, the share of friendly countries is over 90% of the Russian energy exports. The physical overall volume, with the exception of natural gas, clearly for the specialists, is almost the same as that of 2021. Russia expands the geography and the scale of energy cooperation. We're constructing new routes, including routes towards the dynamic and growing markets of the Eurasian Economic Union, CIS, the south of Eurasia. We're increasing the supply through the Power of Siberia gas pipeline, and we're increasing the exports of the liquefied natural gas. The LNG from the Russian Arctic has become one of the major cargoes of the Northern Sea route. We will definitely continue working on our own services and technologies in the area of LNG. We will continue to develop the transit centers, the storage and trade facilities for LNG. We'll ensure enough LNG carriers and build up the capacity of our Arctic and Eastern seaports, improving the links and infrastructure along the Northern Sea route. The Russian colleagues are well aware of what I'm talking about. They are facing numerous problems, and it somehow holds back our plans, but they will definitely be implemented. Overall, we're expanding the international transport corridors. By 2030, the volume of shipments along these routes is supposed to increase by at least 1.5 times compared to 2021. We're working on the eastern polygon of railroads. This year, the overall cargo capacity of the Baikal-Amur Railway and the Trans-Siberian Railway is 180 million tons. In 10 years, it will increase up to 270 million tons of cargo, which would allow to transfer more fuel and energy products from our Siberian regions to the markets of the global south. We have another question on the financial infrastructure, the payments for the Russian exports. We have our own difficulties in this regard. To find solutions, we're using transactions in national currencies, and our partners are highly interested in such transactions. Sure, there are problems in this area as well. We understand that, but we're eventually overcoming them. The share of the Russian ruble in our foreign trade is approaching 40%. Since 2021 to 2023, the share of the Russian ruble in the transactions for our exports has increased almost threefold, up to 39%. In the first half of this year, this figure was at 39.4%. At the same time, as part of the cooperation within BRICS, we work to establish our own payment and transaction system, which would establish conditions for efficient and independent service for the entire foreign trade. Let me add that the shipments of energy resources from Russia allow the friendly countries to hold back the growth of import prices while ensuring their own energy security and economic sustainability, allowing them to be more competitive on the global market. At the same time, we intend to move forward. We shall not be limited only to the sales of resources. Russia is ready to strengthen the technological sovereignty of its partners in the energy sector by establishing full-fledged scientific and production chains. This is how we work in the area of the peaceful nuclear energy. The Rosatom stations are constructed abroad together with the preparation and training for the local professionals, engineers, workers and managers for the new energy sites. Essentially, we're not just building a nuclear power plant. As Rosatom says, we are creating an industry, a new industry of energy and economy for our partners. This combination of intellectual and resource capacities of various countries reaching new areas of international cooperation would unleash new opportunities for our scientific and research schools, for the development of machinery, the services, and for the entire Russian energy sector. Distinguished colleagues, by the end of last year, the volume of energy consumption in Russia has set a new record, which is over the figures of the Soviet era. You're well aware that if the energy consumption is growing, this is a very good indicator of the economic growth. Our energy system is one of the largest in the world, and it deals with the rising demand for energy by the business economy and the social sphere. It is changing its appearance. In the last 15 years, the overall power capacity of the Russian energy has increased by 18%, and the stations themselves have gone through deep modernization. We have more modern, efficient and energy-saving power plants. The share of natural gas and environmentally friendly and efficient hydrocarbon is 48% of the energy mix of our country. Together with nuclear and hydro energy, which have the minimal carbon footprint, the share is over 85%. This means that our energy mix is one of the greenest in the world, and this is absolutely obvious. Unlike certain Western countries that use the climate agenda to promote their own, essentially neo-colonial interests, we are working on a fair and consecutive energy transition that takes into account our natural conditions, our social and economic growth, and the development of our cities and territories, and the structure of our fuel and energy mix.
We intend to continue this policy. We will further renew and strengthen our energy system that has now entered a period of re-equipment and implementation of new technological solutions. In particular, we are forming a solid scientific and practical groundwork in such future-oriented fields as renewables, small nuclear power plants, and nuclear fusion, as well as hydrogen generation and construction of road, water, railway transport driven by this fuel. It's true that the pace of implementation of these technologies may differ, but let me reiterate, already now it is important to see this perspective and shape our plans for the future. As you know, the government has been instructed to extend the planning period of the Russian energy strategy until the middle of the century. This strategy envisages a large and comprehensive plan to enhance energy capacities all across our country. Those are long-term projects. We need to look into the future, and that's what we are doing. This work will be based on the large, systemically important projects with long-term investments, including, as I've already mentioned, implementation of new technologies, development of mineral deposits, construction of enabling infrastructure, power stations and power lines. I would like to remind my colleagues from the government, in the coming months already, they have to come up with an updated energy strategy and implement it step by step. They have to work in line with the long-term priorities for the development of our domestic fuel and energy complex. Right now, the government is negotiating its parameters among different agencies. I elaborated on these projects a year ago at the previous Energy Week. I remind you that the main priority is covering the internal demand, stable supplies of our regions, cities and plants with affordable energy sources, and let me stress, all needs of our national development strategies until 2030 should be covered by the fuel and energy complex. According to our estimates, the energy consumption in Russia will be growing by an average of 2% per year by the end of this decade. It is almost the same figures as in the world. We plan to put into operation about 27 gigawatts of new generation capacities for this period, including heat, hydro and nuclear power plants. We enable and enhance connectivity between energy systems of Urals, Siberia and east of our country. Far East will be in particular focus. The energy consumption in this region is growing at a greater pace than Russian average. And for the construction of new production sites, residential houses, infrastructure and social facilities will naturally boost consumption. And our energy sector needs to be up to this demand, including with the use of advanced nuclear generation with a low environmental burden. I have already given the instruction to elaborate a program for the development of energy in the Far Eastern Federal District. Just as the energy strategy for the whole country, it will cover the period until 2050, and I ask the government to accelerate the adoption of this document. A particular topic is greater reliability of power supplies of our constituent entities. This year we have adopted a fundamentally new approach, namely we introduced the concept of territorial network organizations. Starting from 2025, they will become operational in every region of our country and will become central bodies in charge of power supplies, including the issues of operation of abandoned facilities, which unfortunately still exist, as well as elimination of consequences of network facilities, of network failures, and so on. I ask the government, together with heads of regions and energy companies, to conduct an ongoing analysis of the efficiency of territorial network organizations, and we need to devise a specific plan for ensuring greater energy supplies for every constituent entity of the Russian Federation. And of course, we have to come up with the financement sources. We need to apply all instruments from regulatory agreements and infrastructure credits up to concession mechanisms and maintenance contracts. On a separate note, I would like to mention the gas field. It's going through a period of dramatic changes, and I'm not only talking about the shift in the exports from east to west to the east, but also of a significant increase of domestic supplies, including under the program of social gasification that was launched in 2021 and is being implemented at a good pace. And my particular thanks go to Gazprom company. Gazprom is definitely playing a leading role in this field. It is our largest company in the field, and I ask the heads of the company and the government to come up with a 10-year plan for the development of the cooperation. It will ensure its sustainable development. We need to build an infrastructure for the change in geography. It should take into account our vast plans for gasification of Russian regions, as well as greater volumes of gas processing within our country. When I'm talking about the redistribution of routes, we all understand what I'm talking about. Previously, our traditional customers decided to abandon our comparatively cheap energy resources and instead to buy other resources. Well, it's their decision. Next point, increasing the volumes of hydrocarbon processing in Russia at our plants and facilities is another priority goal for our domestic fuel and energy sector. We have to ensure the increase in volumes of hydrocarbon production. We have already envisaged special tax stimuli. Thanks to the state support measures, we launched the development of such shale deposits as Prizhozlomne in the Arctic region and similar sub-projects on the Sakhalin Island. We developed hard-to-recover deposits at the Palyanovskoye oil field in Khanty-Mansi Autonomous District and Yuzhno-Neprikovskoye oil field in the Samara region. We begin to develop new oil and gas-bearing basins in eastern Siberia and in the Arctic region. I'm talking about such large projects as Vostok oil in the Krasnoyarsk region, as well as Utruniye and Shtomovoye oil fields in the Gdansk Peninsula. In the Far East, coal production centers have ever greater capacities. By the way, this year already the Pacific Railroad will become operational. It is a private main line running from Elginskoye field in Yakutia to the port of Elga in Khabarovsk region. It is very important, it's crucial to make sure the development of unique deposits in Russia encourages domestic processing. We need to create a maximum value added in our country. We have launched a Standoff program to modernize oil refineries. Its goal is to ensure our economy, cities and villages and our citizens with high-quality fuel, lubricants and bitumen. I ask the government to carefully supervise implementation of this program and monitor each and every plant in terms of the schedule for maintenance and modernization works. Particular focus needs to be on the development of oil, gas and coal chemical industries. According to our estimates, the demand for the production in our country and all across the world will only be growing, and the return on investment is very high in this field. Throughout the chains, from the raw materials to the end products, the price can grow by up to 12 times. Russia is already implementing large projects in this field. we have a largest in the country petrochemical refinery, that is Sibneftekhim, and we are building a Morsky gas chemical facility that will be the greatest Russian enterprise to produce basic polymers. It is important to see a growing number of such projects. It is important that in different regions of our country we open new productions and create good jobs. I have already drawn the attention of the government, and I would like to reiterate it once again. We need to support these initiatives by our businesses. And something else, it's obvious that under the current conditions, reliable operation of fields, pipelines, refineries, power plants, fuel and energy sector on the whole depend on our own human resources, technologies and competences for the construction of production and transport equipment, energy machine construction and so on. One of the most important systemic instruments to support domestic solutions will be the national project to be launched next year. It is entitled New Nuclear and Energy Technologies. This national project will set out ambitious goals, namely to maintain Russia's leading role in the nuclear field, to maintain our leading role, I stress it, because right now our leadership is already global. It's obvious when it comes to the works performed by our leading Rosatom company. And the goal is to ensure the technological sovereignty of our country in all fields of the fuel and energy complex. That is the goal of the new national project. I ask my colleagues in the government, together with our business, academic prices, to study all details of this national project to make sure we can implement it without any delays. Distinguished colleagues, the fuel and energy complex of Russia is a modern, dynamic field. The domestic fuel and energy complex is up to the modern day, including global challenges, and it is strengthening the raw materials, technological and industrial sovereignty of our country. It maintains and expands trade and cooperational ties with reliable foreign partners. Russia meets its obligations in terms of energy supplies for the global market. It plays a stabilizing role, participating in such prominent formats as OPEC Plus and Forum of Gas Exporting Countries. By the way, in these formats too, we cooperate with the countries that our guest is representing in both organizations. And we will continue cooperation with our partners. I'm sure that strategic long-term goals that Russian energy is facing will be reached, meaning that our energy companies, their employees and the whole sector will be provided with stable jobs for many years to come. They will make their great, considerable contribution to the achievement of national goals of Russia and increasing the quality of life of our citizens, and obviously they will further contribute to the ensuring the balance on the global energy markets in the interest of sustainable and global development. I thank you for your attention.
Выступление президента Республики.
Speech by the President of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, Mr. Teodoro Obiang Mbasogo.
Su Excelencia Vladimir Putin,
Your Excellency, Mr. Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, Your Excellencies, heads of delegations, representatives of organizations, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to speak at the 7th International Forum Russian Energy Week on the theme Energy Cooperation in a Multipolar World. Also, allow me to express our gratitude and appreciation to the organizers for inviting Equatorial Guinea to participate in this meeting dedicated to exchanging experiences and best practices in order to address the challenges of the energy industry and expand international cooperation, given the importance of the energy sector in the economic development of nations.
Quiero expresar mis profundos agradecimientos
I would like to express my deep gratitude to the government and people of the Russian Federation and to my good friend Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, for the fraternal welcome and hospitality we have experienced since our arrival in this beautiful historic city of Moscow. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this forum is taking place in an international context characterized by an economic and financial crisis caused by the drop in hydrocarbon prices, as well as the negative effects caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, for which we must all unite in solidarity to find solution mechanisms. Indeed, we live in times of great changes and challenges. We face the reality of a world that is in transition in terms of the structures that support our economies. In this context, the energy sector plays a determining role, being one of the pillars on which our nations rest. Therefore, the positions that we take today will have a lasting impact on future generations. Equatorial Guinea has the firm will to deepen its energy cooperation with Russia and friendly countries. Our nation, which is rich in natural resources such as gas and oil, is open to establishing strategic alliances with interested partners. Our desire is to build a future in which the economies of our countries benefit from genuine cooperation based on mutual trust and shared gain that favor our societies. That is why we invite Russian companies and those companies from other friendly states to collaborate not only in energy production, but also in the exploration and exploitation of our gas and oil resources. These partnerships shall not be limited to resource extraction, but should include knowledge transfer, technological training, as well as the support for the development of modern energy infrastructure. Our goal is clear: to ensure that Equatorial Guinea, together with its partners, can optimize the use of its energy resources using the most advanced technology in the sector. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot talk about energy development without addressing one of the most pressing problems facing the world: energy poverty, as millions of people do not have reliable access to energy. In this regard, the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, together with other African partners, collaborates in the Strategic Partnership and Financing Committee of the Central African Pipeline System to invest in the construction of energy infrastructure in order to stimulate our economies and raise the standard of living of our societies.
En efecto, Guinea Ecuatorial considera que
Equatorial
la
Guinea
cooperación energética
believes
debe
that
estar guiada
cooperation
por
in the
un
field of
principio
energy
fundamental
should
que
be
es
guided
el
by
de
a fundamental
garantizar la
principle,
estabilidad de los mercados
namely
energéticos
to ensure the
para que los
stability
más
of energy
vulnerables
markets
no sean quienes
so
sufran
that the most
las
vulnerable
consecuencias de
people
la volatilidad
are not
de los
suffering from the
precios en
consequences
los
of
mercados.
volatility.
Por otro lado, Guinea Ecuatorial
On the other hand,
apoya firmemente
Equatorial
las
Guinea
estrategias
strongly
y
supports
esfuerzos
the
para
strategies and
estabilizar
efforts
los mercados globales energéticos.
aimed at stabilizing the
Por lo
global
que
energy markets.
lanzamos un llamado a todos los actores
That is why we are
internacionales
calling
para
on
trabajar
all
en
international
conjunto
actors
con el
to
fin
work
de
together
mitigar
in
la
order to mitigate
incertidumbre y promover
the
políticas
uncertainty
de mercado
and
apropiadas.
promote
La
the
energía
respective market
no debe
policies.
ser un arma que nos divide, sino un
Energy
vehículo
should not be a weapon
para
that
la
divides us,
prosperidad
but rather
compartida.
a vehicle
Es
for
una
shared
responsabilidad
prosperity.
colectiva garantizar que
It is
los
a collective
países menos
responsibility
avanzados no queden a merced
to ensure that less
fluctuación
advanced
de los
countries
precios
of the
de los
world
recursos energéticos,
are not left at the mercy of fluctuating energy
excluidos
resource prices
de los
or
beneficios de la
excluded from the
energía,
benefits of
así
energy
como
and
de los
technological
avances tecnológicos en el
advances in the
sector.
sector.
De igual modo, aunque todos los estados productores
Similarly,
compartimos en los mismos
although
mercados,
all
no
of
todos
us,
disponemos
all producing
de las
countries,
mismas
share the
ventajas.
same markets,
Ello
we do not all have
ha
the same
motivado que
advantages.
la empresa nacional
This has motivated
Petrol
the national company,
asumiera
G
los
Petrol,
activos de la empresa
to take over the assets
ExxonMobil
of
en
ExxonMobil
Guinea Ecuatorial
in Equatorial Guinea
para liderar el sector
in order to
petrolero
lead the country's
del
oil
país,
sector
realizando su primer embarque de crudo en julio de
The
este
first crude
mismo
oil
año.
shipment was made in July this year.
Excelencias, señoras y señores,
Excellencies, ladies
este
and gentlemen,
periodo se caracteriza por el
this
discurso
period is
de la
characterized
eliminación de las energías
by
fósiles
the
contaminantes.
deliberations on
Este concepto
the
de
abandonment
la
of fossil fuels.
descarbonización no
The
exige
concept of
reducir
decarbonization
las emisiones
requires
de
that we
dióxido de
reduce
carbono.
CO2
Pero debemos
emissions,
recalcar que Guinea Ecuatorial
but we
no
should
es uno
note
de los
that
países de
Equatorial
mayores
Guinea
emisiones
is not
de
one of the
dióxido
countries
de carbono.
that emit
Al
the most
contrario,
carbon dioxide volumes.
nuestras emisiones
Quite on the
apenas
contrary,
afectan
our
al cambio
emissions
climático.
barely affect the climate
Ponemos
change.
al día con las exigencias mundiales de la descarbonización de nuestras fuentes de energía.
However,
y es una tarea
implementation of the
difícil
global
de
demands for
asumir
decarbonization of
actualmente
our energy
por la
sources is a
República
difficult
de
task
Guinea
for the
Ecuatorial.
Republic of Equatorial Guinea.
Por otra parte, Guinea
On the
Ecuatorial
other hand,
no
Equatorial
dispone
Guinea
de la misma tecnología y avances en la
doesn't possess the same
descarbonización
technologies and
en
advancements
comparación
in the
con
field of
los
decarbonization
países más avanzados
as
y con
more
acceso
advanced
a
countries in
las
the world,
tecnologías de punta. Por tanto,
which have
no
access
podemos
to cutting-edge
aceptar
technologies.
una transición
Therefore, we
energética
cannot
que deje atrás a los países menos
accept an energy
avanzados.
transition that leaves
Es
behind the
preciso
less
reconocer y
developed
aceptar
countries.
que habrá
We
varias
should
velocidades
recognize and
en el
accept
concierto internacional
the fact
con
that in the
respecto
global
a los
arena,
tiempos y recursos para adaptarse
the
a las
adjustment to the new
nuevas
market conditions
condiciones
will be happening in
de
a
los
different pace.
mercados. Excelencias, señoras y
Excellencies,
señores,
ladies and gentlemen,
garantizar el futuro de la energía es una
securing the
tarea
future of
compartida.
energy is our
Esta
shared
tarea
task.
es la de cooperación de
This
la que
goal
insta la Guinea
can be
Ecuatorial,
accomplished through cooperation,
una cooperación
and Equatorial
que no
Guinea
se
is
base
calling for such
únicamente en
cooperation.
la producción de
It
energía,
should not be
sino también
solely based on
en la
energy
determinación
production,
conjunta
but also on our shared determination to
en los
promote
mercados de energía
active stability on the energy
a una
markets,
transición tecnológica
leading to
justa
a fair
para todos.
technological transition for
No
all of us.
podemos hablar de cooperación
We can
si
hardly
el
speak of
propósito
cooperation
no es común. No podemos
if
hablar de
we
cooperación
don't share a
si
single
el
purpose.
beneficio no
We
es
can
mutuo.
hardly speak of cooperation
Ciertamente
if the
no
benefit is
podemos
not
hablar
mutual.
de cooperación
And even more, we
sin
cannot speak
un
of cooperation
alineamiento fundamentado en la consideración y en el
if there is no
respeto
agreement
por
among us based
las
on
demás
consideration and
naciones.
respect for other nations.
Concluyo deseando plenos éxitos a
To
esta
conclude, I would
edición
like to
del
wish
séptimo Foro Internacional
the
Semana
7th International
Energética
Forum,
Rusa
the Russian
como
Energy Week,
en las anteriores y que las
all
deliberaciones
success
y propuestas
that the previous
redunden
sessions had
en
seen,
un mundo
and
sin
main deliberations and
injusticias
proposals
energéticas.
result
Muchas
in a
gracias.
world without any energy injustice. Thank you very much.
Уважаемые друзья, коллеги,
Excellencies, dear friends, colleagues,
впереди у вас целая рабочая
you
неделя
have an entire working week ahead of you,
взаимных
a week of
встреч,
contacts, meetings, deliberations, and discussions
ради обсуждения которых вы здесь в
on
Москве
the
и
topics
собрались.
for the sake of which you have come
Конечно,
together to Moscow.
на вашу работу и в данный
Your
момент,
work,
и на текущую вашу работу в
your
целом
current work, and on your work as a whole cannot
не может не
but
оказывать
be
влияния, не могут не
affected
оказывать влияние те события, которые в
by
мире
the events
происходят
unfolding in the
в сфере
world.
политики.
I'm talking about political
Политика и
events.
экономика очень
Politics
тесно
and economics
связаны
are
между
close
собой.
interrelated.
Тем более в такой
Particularly
важнейшей, фундаментальной
in
сфере
such a
экономики, как
fundamental
энергетика. Эта
economic
связь
field as
прослеживается на
energy.
протяжении
We can
всего
see this
существования человечества.
interconnection
Это очевидно.
throughout
Сейчас
the
она стала
entire history of
настолько
mankind.
очевидной, что
And now it
она
has become
понятна и
particularly
для
obvious.
людей, которые не занимаются ни
And it
экономикой, ни
is
политикой.
clear to the people
Но
who
всё-таки
never
здесь,
deal with energy or politics.
собрались люди, которые
But nonetheless,
привыкли
in this hall,
что-то
we see the
конкретное
people
делать,
who are used
а
to
не говорить о том, что
achieving,
и как
accomplishing
надо
something
делать другим.
specific instead of advising others on how to do things.
И вот
Business-like
результатов
people
вашей
are
работы
here
в
in this
значительной
hall,
степени
and the outcomes
многое
of your
зависит
work
в экономике,
will
а значит и
determine
в
a
политике.
lot in the field of energy
Я
and hence in the
искренне
field
хочу
of
пожелать
politics.
вам
I would like
успехов
to sincerely wish
в
you
этой
every
совместной
success in
работе.
your joint work,
И хочу выразить надежду
and I would like to
на
express
то,
my
что
hope
ваша работа будет
that your work
максимально
will be
деполитизирована.
as depoliticized as possible and as pragmatic as possible.
Искренне желаем вам успехов.
Our
И наших
sincere
иностранных
good
гостей
wishes
хочу
to all of you,
поблагодарить за
and I would
то,
like to
что вы
express my
в
particular
это
gratitude to
непростое
our
время
foreign
приняли решение
friends for having
приехать в нашу
taken the
страну,
decision to come to
столицу
our
России,
country in these
Москву.
difficult
Всего вам
times,
самого
to the
доброго,
capital of Russia, to
успехов
Moscow.
и
All the best
благополучия.
to you. Thank you.
Желаю вам удачи.
And
Спасибо.
I wish you all success.